Hopefully my mic works well. Hey everybody! Hopefully my mic works well today. Kenny and I are recording this for the second time, right, Kenny?
Yes, practice makes perfect, right?
It sure does. Hey everybody! If this is your first time to the STRonomics podcast, I'm Bill Faith from Build STR Wealth, and this is my good friend Kenny, not co-founder, but founder of STR Insights. How are you today, my friend?
Doing well. Enjoying the weather now that it's warmer. So
awesome. I think you
yeah,
said that when we recorded this the first time too, yesterday.
maybe.
So I think my mic sound good. No echo. It's coming through nice, crystal clear.
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. I'm always loud. That's for sure. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about, Kenny. How do we? You're going to cover some data side, some amenities, strategic implementations that we can do, and I'm going to cover some marketing stuff on how we can maximize our STR revenue today. So I'm going to kind of let you lead off. I know that you have a big training on this that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and so I've kind of you're doing the 7 steps to maximize your STR revenue with John, however you say his last name, Bianchi. No, I'm just kidding. John Bianchi. Is that how you say it, Bianchi?
Yeah.
So let's start with, what does strategic amenity investments mean?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, I think, one of the more obvious ones that people do is we call them, amenity ads or value ads. So basically going in and adding a particular amenity. If you think of typical ones like hot tubs, swimming
hot tub
pool,
time machine.
Yeah,
that works in every market, right? Exactly the same.
Yep, adding a hot tub with a time machine will triple your ROI, I promise.
Done. I'm calling the hot tub company
first. Yeah.
I just bought my next place in Saudi Arabia in the desert. Will a hot tub triple my ROI there?
Probably not. And that's the thing too we're going to talk about, is that just because it's amenity that's hot, or popular in certain markets doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in your market. And we're going to talk about which amenities, some amenities that are under the radar and amenities that are doing well, and with, depending on the market. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. When you look at the data, it does vary. If you take a pool, or not a pool market, which that's funny, a pool market. If you take a beach market, hot tubs don't really have a great ROI in those markets compared to, say, a mountain or a lake, or some other more remote destination type of market. So the ROI really isn't there. It's better, that money is better spent on other things in the beach market than just the hot tub. And those are important decisions we make when we're trying to maximize revenue.
You mean like kayaks?
Like your kayaks, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, kayaks, or potentially EV charger. We'll talk about that one too, because that's not necessary. And that's the same thing. I mean, it could even be certain amenities are for better houses than for other houses. Like if you're guests, like you don't need an EV charger probably at your townhouse. Whereas like a nicer 4-bedroom property, where guests who travel there typically drive that persona, that demographic drives electric vehicles. Yeah, EV charger makes sense.
So you think that it's like townhouse or cabin or beach house, or do you think it's like ADR specific?
I mean, it kind of depends, right? But in this specific case, I think it is.
Now you sound like Jeff Hampton. It depends.
Yeah, I know, right? You're gonna call me the diaper man. It depends, right. But it depends on the situation. But yeah, no, I mean, I would say like property type, guest demographic, all those certain things, and then adding that particular amenity will then improve ADR.
So, it's interesting. So I own, my wife owns a Tesla, and she's never driven it to one of our houses. We did put an EV charger in at our lake property because it's the only one we technically can drive to. It's like 2.5 hours away. But it's only available for us. We do not it's in the garage that has all of our shit, like my side-by-side and fishing gear and everything. Mm-hmm. So we just don't let guests have access to it. But I think when we did a podcast probably a couple months ago about, the most valuable amenities to add, and the kind of when you talked about, Fort Morgan, Alabama, to where I'm pet friendly, I own properties there. It's the only pet friendly, beach, and basically the Panhandle, definitely in Alabama, and it doesn't really move the needle. but yet kayaks would. I went out and bought kayaks and added them to the property. Kind of moving forward to the EV, charger. I'm getting a ton of requests at my larger properties for EV chargers. At my Gulf Shores property, my Big Dragonfly, my Banner Elk property is getting the most, believe it or not. But I think, and the other thing that would be interesting to me, Kenny, in regards to that is location. So think about if you're in Palm Springs or Joshua Tree, a couple of hours outside of LA, California has to have the largest number of Teslas driving around in any state, I'm going to guess. Or if you're somewhere out there, it's probably going to create more value than it would for me in North Carolina, I would assume. Would you agree?
100%.
So I think that's part of that deeper research that I think becomes really important. But there's a second component to this. And we talked about this, it's the marketing of it. It doesn't do you any good just to go in and add a hot tub or to add kayaks or to add an EV charger if you don't market it. And what I mean by that is like really making it prominent, with these value add, the strategic component that Kenny's giving you. I mean, I made like a maybe a $750 investment in 2 kayaks to add to my Fort Morgan property, which now is the property that's struggling the most in my entire portfolio. And so I put the kayaks in the first 5 images, which I normally wouldn't do. But it's, I talk about marketing from the outside in. And, now that I have something to market outside of the views of the ocean and the beach and all that type of stuff, it's giving me more opportunity to market, but also showcase, those more valuable amenities.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think too, it helps, especially certain amenities. And this is like a deeper conversation that we don't have to get into, but right now, but it impacts branding, right? So if you're the only property that has the EV charger and you're having guests use that EV charger, and you're capturing your guest emails, you're using MarketMySTR, shameless plug there, to send out emails. And
what was that you mentioned? I couldn't hear you. MarketMySTR.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
there we go.
Oh, cool. Thanks for popping that up on the screen, Kenny.
The latest and hottest CRM for short-term rental hosts. But if you're doing that, so you're basically messaging your guests who are coming to your properties, sending them afterwards, hey, telling them about information. You can build up a brand, especially if it's a new amenity to an area that nobody else has. You can build up a brand for that guest of like, hey, we cater to, people who drive electric vehicles. Better example, because that's a really weird brand, but it is a thing. I mean, it's like Tesla, right? Better example of this. One of my properties in Buffalo, a couple of years ago, I realized, and this, I quickly realized that I was having a lot of wedding guests. So I changed my pictures. I threw up reviews from wedding guests who had stayed, like they were like not bachelorette parties, but they were there for their weddings. The venues are walking distance, or a couple of venues in the downtown,
like the bridesmaids or groomsmen or whatever staying at the property.
And I took pictures of I had some bridesmaids like doing makeup, like a little makeup table, and I bought extra, hair dryers and steamers and all kinds of stuff, length mirrors in every single room, things that you typically wouldn't. It's not you wouldn't normally do if you weren't thinking about it, but I kind of made that extra step and then emphasized it in my listing, and that elevated that revenue that year. I went from like $80,000 to $120,000, and I also marketed to them, and not just on Airbnb, but through Facebook ads and some other things as well. And I built up this clientele. And now, I don't really have to market. I just kind of I have it on the OTAs in that sense that I can really push that. And I get guests all the time, and they pay more money. And I branded my property like this wedding event, stay here if you're going to be married in these places.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because, you've got number 2 and yours is highest and best use design, but there's also niche design as well. Yeah. And that's kind of what Kenny has done is he's gone after the wedding market. I just got off a 30-minute phone call, Kenny, with Manish about his properties in the OBX. And this is a mastermind member that has 3 of the largest properties side by side, the 3 authors. And he wants to start targeting weddings. And I gave him the whole strategy and how to do that, with local planners, local associations, blah, blah, blah. But to your point, it's funny because I just had this conversation talking about similar things that he needs to do in his property that he doesn't currently have if he wants to attract the wedding planner to book for her clients, right?
Yeah.
And those are things to where I think a lot of people think they can just have the, the nicest design and they're going to win. Well, if it's not specific to the buyer persona that you're trying to attract, you can have the nicest design in Orlando or Kissimmee close to Disney, but if it's not kid friendly, you're not going to get families to stay there, right? So I think those are things that are really important that people need to understand. And then, as Kenny said, he's doing Facebook ads, he's doing off platform marketing. And I think really for me, Kenny, that's the key today. If you're going to make an investment, add a hot tub, you're going to upgrade your design, you're going to put in murals, you're going to level up in any form or fashion, you've got to do off-platform marketing. There's not enough demand. You're seeing this. I see it in my reports that come in, from Rank Breeze and the market reports and all the stuff from Price Labs and everything. There's just the demand. And you gave me the data that I did the state of the industry at the conference a couple of months ago. The demand is less than it was in 2021, 22. So that means, are you going to sit back and wait, or are you going to implement off-platform marketing strategies?
Right.
So talk about your thoughts on the design. You have highest and best use design as number 2 for maximizing your revenue on the 7 things.
I mean, design and decor and furnishings, that's really, I kind of see when I really study the data, you see like really 3 tiers of properties in a location. So, you have your high end, and they all, one of the commonalities between a lot of these is they have some of the best design and decor in the entire market. It might not necessarily be the best location, have the best views or like certain things, and that, depending on the market, obviously, but they have that element, that design that just stands out. People are visual. When we book, we're visual. And if you can see it and see yourself there and you want to be there, desire to be there, it makes that buying desire hard to change. And so really understanding now, there's a trade-off though. Like, don't just get emotional about, okay, sweet, I'm going to go dump $100,000 into my property. I mean, it's funny. I had this conversation. I'm thinking about doing that to my property in Watkins Glen, taking it to the next level and dumping in $100,000. And I was talking to John Hodge about it. He was like, well, Kenny, are you thinking about, would it be better just to take that $100,000 and go buy another property? Like, what's the trade-off there?
That's the whole auditing process.
Yep.
That's why, we all have to think, and I've preached this forever, where's the best place to utilize that cash?
Right.
Is it $100,000 to take a $350,000 property and add $50,000 a year, or can you take that $100,000 and buy a $500,000 property or a $450,000 in property and put $10,000 into it, to generate $100,000? And, I think that's that fine line that people don't understand how to audit, because the reality in today's marketplace, maximizing revenue of your current STR is super important, but maximizing all of your revenue is even more important, right? And there's a reason, that I have flipped properties. There's a reason I'm selling or almost technically sold my Beach Mountain property, because I'll take that 170 and reinvest into a property that will generate more cash flow for me. It's interesting because there was the number 3 thing that you have is really $25,000 photos. There was somebody that just posted last night into my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group, and it's a really nice cabin with a sport court and all that type of stuff in Broken Bow. Got hot tub, all the amenities. It's nice. They just listed. It's been listed for 2 weeks, like no bookings. Didn't do the 20% promotion. Didn't get reviews immediately while they were setting up. Has no bookings. And the photos are average. They're good iPhone photos, and you know how they're dark and kind of have the shadows and stuff like that. The place looks great, but shitty execution, right? Yeah. He needs professional, bright, edited photos. He didn't have his order in the right sequence for his photos. He didn't do the promotion to get to the top of the rankings. He didn't do, have friends and family stay, and give him some 5-star reviews to start to boost the credibility. He didn't leverage any of that stuff. And that's the fine line between getting booked and nada, zilch, nothing, right? And those are things that become really important. I think you mentioned in one of the episodes we recorded yesterday, talking about, getting the hearts, to your listing. And it's one of the reasons that we do Favorite Friday in my group, every Friday. And then everybody else, every other influencer that has a group has copied that exact same thing. There's relevancy when we drive traffic, to our OTA listings. But if you don't nail the amenities, as Kenny had number one, if you don't nail the photos, if you don't nail these things, then, if I take on a shitty property, if I buy it or if I co-host it, being arguably one of the top, if not the best marketer in our industry, my hands are tied. I've got handcuffs on. I can't do anything with bad images. I can't do anything with bad design. That is going to 100% dictate how much revenue you're going to generate out of your property.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's kind of like if you just buy a dump hole and you just list it, like you can't just, gone are the days when we could just get any booking, throw up any property and get bookings without any worry. I still see people trying to do that, and they're going to get burned. And I think after this year, they're going to get slaughtered, to be frank.
Do you think it's going to get worse than this year?
Yes, 100%. Well, I mean, right now we're in the peak summer, and that's the problem too. Like, well, we're going into peak season. So like right now, like, some people, I'm hearing a lot of people, like I don't have as many bookings, or my rates aren't as great. Booked rates aren't as great as they were last year, but it's summer. I'm booked. I'm happy, whatever. Okay. Well,
they'll be singing a different tune in November.
Yeah. Or even September. When school starts back up and everything like goes back, like that's where things start to slow down. And I think it's going to be a lot more drastic. And then in October, November, you're going to hear a lot of people crying. So
folks, Kenny's 100% correct. And that honestly is exactly why I have brought you guys MarketMySTR, because it's cheap. I'm not even going to call it affordable. It's dead cheap. Compared to what Kenny spends on HubSpot or what I used to spend on HubSpot or Sharper Spring. Kenny cannot sit back and wait and rely on just Airbnb and Vrbo anymore. And you should have your summer you should have at least June booked right now if it's your ultra peak season. And you should have probably at least 50% of July booked. I have 1 week open, the last week of July. And I just did my first rate reduction because it was an obscene rate at like $24.75 a night, and brought it down to $1,900 or a night, $19.75, I think. But immediately when I did that, I sent out an email, and then I sent a text message in a funnel, and I deployed some very cost efficient $8 a day in Facebook ads, all through MarketMySTR, right? So we need email marketing. You need to have StayFi. You need to be capturing all the emails. You need email marketing. You need some social media. And you definitely should implement some text message marketing to a direct booking site, right? And I just recorded a podcast, Kenny, on my podcast, STR Unfiltered. I think I had the STRonomics logo up. Actually, I forgot to switch it. But I recorded one this morning about the transition of, I was talking about really maximizing guest communication, but then in that transition to marketing once a guest leaves, right? So the way you communicate with the guest, and then that transition and how often you communicate with your guests during their stay and prior to their stay sets the tone for your marketing afterwards, right? And a lot of people wait too long to start marketing to their guests. They should start marketing literally the day they check out. So I have an automated text message now that I've switched all my stuff over to MarketMySTR that goes out at 4:00 the day of checkout. And that starts my marketing, and it gives them 2 weeks to rebook. And it introduces all of my properties on the MarketMySTR sales page, and I give them 10% discount if they book in the next 2 weeks. But it sets the tone because I have very similar communication. And that's really, Kenny knows this, churn rate and LTV, two most important metrics really in any business that has any type of reoccurring revenue. Unfortunately, we as hosts don't have reoccurring revenue. If you market to your past guests, you can turn that into reoccurring revenue, especially even more so if you're in traditional old school markets like the mountains up and down the East Coast and that type of stuff. It becomes super important. Kenny, I've been preaching for years, and if you remember all the way back when we had Kelvin Ma, like a year and a half, 2 years ago in our mastermind meeting, and this is one that you're talking about: rankings, ratings, and reviews, right? And I think that's number 5 on your 7 things that you're going to be going after. I'm a big advocate of ranking first. Earns the higher our ranking, it earns us a better right to charge higher prices, because I've been that highest price guy forever. I think most people probably understand that. If they don't, but how do reviews play into this? So you've got, ranking, rating, and reviews. Kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so obviously, like the higher we rank, typically the more money we can make. But we need to start thinking of Airbnb or the OTA rankings as popularity metrics. So basically, what they're really looking at, and if we start studying the data, they're trying to show properties that fit, like, essentially they're popular properties. So people that are basically going to have a higher close rate. So when they click on that property, they're going to purchase and move along through the sales cycle and essentially pay them Airbnb money to stay at that property. And so the most important thing you can do, obviously, so to get you up in the rankings, is to show Airbnb that your listing is popular, meaning you're getting bookings and those guests are talking about your property. If we think of typical products like on Amazon or Walmart or wherever, when you search something, the top ranked products aren't ranked by review, like the rating. It's ranked by the number of reviews because they're most popular. The ratings could be all over the place, but the most popular with kind of like a standard good rating are at the top. You have to kind of dig for like those perfect 5 stars. So I always chuckle when people are like, "Hey, yeah, I've got 5-star, rating, and I'm the best, blah blah blah," and they have like 20 reviews. I'm like, I would rather have a 4.8 or 8.5 and have 200 reviews over just 20 reviews, because I will be placed higher in the ranking because my property has more experience, more popularity proven to Airbnb. That makes them money. Therefore, I'm higher in the rankings, and getting reviews is super important to that. There is a higher ROI to getting more reviews than to getting better ratings, believe it or not.
Agreed, 100%. So if you want to join in on Kenny's deal, he's limiting it to 150 people max because he wants to have that intimate relationship to be able to answer questions. He's being joined by John Bianchi. This is happening June what, Kenny? June 14th, 17th?
17th. Yep.
June 17th. He has special pricing going on until June 4th, I think it is.
Yeah.
There's only 150 people. You can sign up at STRDataHost.com. That's STRDataHost.com. And it is the 7 things to maximize revenue. Is that the title? 7 things?
7 steps. I think, 7 steps to maximizing revenue. So we're going to be talking about like different categories. In reality, there's going to be a lot more than just 7, in terms of like the strategies themselves, but there's 7 categories.
You're doing this all in one day, a 1-day training. Hopefully you removed my trademark boot camp yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. A 1-day training. Is it like 8 hours? Is that what I saw?
It's virtual event. I don't even have boot camp on here.
Is it like 8 hours?
It is 8 hours. Yeah, we're going to take an hour break. So it's really 7, but 8 hours.
Gotcha. Nice. I'll just give one. This probably won't be out before then. Actually, hopefully this is going out tomorrow. I'll give one shameless plug. So next week, Thursday, which I think is the 31st, Chris and I and the Build STR Wealth Facebook group, we'll be doing we're going to be using MarketMySTR to show you how to build a direct booking site, a full website from scratch using one of our templates in less than an hour. Like literally from scratch, start to finish in less than an hour. There's no need to go and buy, because you can host unlimited properties on this platform. So it's going to be really interesting. We're going to have a timer, the clock. It's going to be high pressure, but we will get this done in under an hour. It's really that easy. No need to go spend $3,000 to $5,000 to have a website built. This is something that's drag and drop. I'm going to do a lot of the work, and I don't know how to code or do anything like that. So it'll either be a shit show or it's going to be incredible to actually get a full direct booking website done and to be able to take bookings And then the template that we build, which will be brand new, we're going to put inside MarketMySTR so all of you guys can just grab it and customize and use it on your own. So excited for those two events. You can sign up for Kenny's at STRDataHost.com. You can check out go to Build STR Wealth Group. It's going to be a free training inside of the group. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thanks, Kenny. Have a great weekend. Happy hosting, everyone.
See ya.